And the mother character is actually an interesting counterpoint, I think, to Bob, because she's also very benevolent, but she seems infinitely wiser.
Yeah. That was kind of...
Yeah, she's more empathetic because she was listening.
Yeah.
She's listening to her kids. So, I mean, she doesn't always get things right, but she's, she's hearing what you're...
Yeah, and she tries to relate her own experiences in a realistic way in this scene to, what her kid is going through.
And I think also she's meant to be, it's true, she's meant to be like a counterpoint to Chevy, and that she is meant to actually, like, you can actually get something from the conversation with the mom. And I think that part of that is also because I feel like a lot of kids don't have that with their parents.
Yeah.
And part of this being an ideal world is that you actually have a parent that understands and listens to you and can offer advice and sometimes gets it wrong, but isn't completely off the mark. I mean, part of the reason that the game is important to me is that it is very much intended for kids who are, not just for kids who are, but like it's meant to have a very clear space for kids who are exploring their sexuality or their gender identity and feel like they can't share that with their families. And especially if they know they can't, like they've already been explained in so many ways, like you can't tell us about this, we don't want to know, that they could play the game and be like, well, in long story, I have a mom who understands and doesn't seem to mind, and is willing to give me advice on the basis of like who I am as a person and isn't going to judge me for a choice that is, it's important, but it also doesn't change people's value as human beings, what gender or what sexuality they have. And I think kids really struggle in certain families with the feeling that they are less than if they don't decide to be heteronormative.
Of course, yeah.
So there's Mom.
Yay, Mom.
Yeah. And we also like to use Mom to sort of like, for me anyway, I like to use Mom to work in stories about what it was like to be a teen in the 90s. Like ever so often. Just like, even though I know nobody else is laughing but me, to be like, yeah, we had much music dance parties. That happened.
It's interesting because that's another conversation I'd love for us to talk about. The problem, with people, we're none of us are in high school, I'm assuming. And yet people who are in high school can't have jobs writing television shows and movies and games. So there's always that question of authenticity.
Yeah.
Whenever, adults try to write about a teenage world. So what is how do you guys make sure that you come off sort of feeling real? Is it, do you consult with younger people? Do you look for things that are universal to experiences throughout the times? How do you approach that, writing for younger ages?
I think the most important thing about writing for a younger audience is not to forget what it was like when you were that age. I think some adults grow up and they just forget. Like, I have friends who now have children and they're like, oh, that's too soon for them to be doing this. I'm like, don't you remember what we were dealing with when we were 11 or 12? Do you forget what it's like to be a 12-year-old? And they seem to, like, when they have their own children, sometimes they're like, I can't face it. But I think you have to remember what the reality of being that age was, and not kind of rosy colored and remember it as your idyllic childhood, because no one's ever was. And just be honest about it. You're going through puberty just like everybody else was and has been for centuries. And to not forget those feelings. Read your old diaries. Get in touch with yourself. I don't know.
And I think the other important, writing technique that we've always employed with this game is to just be let it be an experience and an exploration wherever as a player you want to go or whatever you want to try, and not try and impose some kind of adult moralistic idea onto anything. So it's an adventure that you're going on.
Yeah, and in some ways, I feel like the 90s do bleed in a little bit into the long story. Because I feel like a lot of the conversations, even though they're ostensibly on a smartphone, they feel so long form in the way that the MSN and the AIM chats of yesteryear did. So I think that's really interesting to see how it kind of has influenced it a little bit too. The electronic relationships even feel a little bit back in the day. I think kids now just communicate solely in emojis. No?
There is one game that was made where the player character could only communicate back to the rest of the world through emojis, and I found that so interesting and weird.
Yeah.
Because I was like, but we need words. But speaking to the other thing that I think helps us a lot in terms of trying to maintain the feeling of real life for people who are under the age of say 16 or 14 is that we have this Tumblr, and we have so many people who write to us beautiful messages on Tumblr and suggestions and reviews, and I think that really helps. We did do play testing for the first episode, so that also helped to get like the general tone of the game and the characters sort of established. But I think there's a continuous dialogue with knowing when what we're doing is, and we have yet to like, maybe, I hope not, but maybe one of our episodes will just be way off base, and I'm sure we'll see it and hear it because like somebody will get letters saying, no, that would never happen, or nobody acts like that, or how could you do that to Turkey Hawk? It's the worst.
And this scene really interests me because I think this is such a scene that really shows Nora's character in the sense that she sort of has to do something to do you a favor to help you with this dance that she knows she's not going to go to. Like, and there's something very bittersweet about this conversation. Do you know what I mean? Her being like, these would be great videos to dance to, and, there's a real longing, a real wish I could be there. Do you guys consciously try to go for that with Nora and that characters? Have her be somebody who, like, is involved but not involved?
Well, I think her online, that is her life, right? Everything right now is online for her. So that's her way of, I think we have talked about that's her way of being involved.
Yeah.
She's not going to go physically with you, but she still wants to be a part of your life, and that's the way she does it.
And yet, as a player, you can express dissatisfaction with that. You can be like, come on, let's meet up. Let's hang out. And of course, she reacts, by pulling away. Do you feel like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. It's not where you're going. Since you want to, do you think the player will have the opportunity to like really fully accept it as a valid relationship, to never meet her and for it to be online forever? Is that a way that things are today? Do you guys think that that's a real, healthy, real, true relationship now? For there to be somebody in your life who you accept at a certain point, you will never meet?
I think lots of people have those relationships now. Tons of people have those only online relationships and have never met.
Yeah, I think it's getting more common. I think one thing was one of the writers that we no longer work with, but who was very instrumental in creating the characters for episode 1, had a relationship that the person that they'd been dating since they were in their teens, and the person lived in Virginia and we live in Toronto, and they saw each other maybe like twice a year if they were lucky. And it was like an 8-year-long relationship. Yeah. And it boggled my mind. And they had met, but the first few years when they were both still in school and very young, they barely ever saw, they maybe saw each other once in high school. But they were very, very avid gamers, and they were very, very avid online communicators, and so that was fine for them. I think there's a part of it too that is, and I'm treading in territory where I'm not an expert, but I think that there are communities of people that are much less invested in the real world communication. Like, they don't need to. Their real worlds occupy many different kinds of spaces. Like, they do a lot. Like, I'm not an online gamer, but my understanding of those kinds of worlds, like World of Warcraft and stuff, is that they can become as meaningful and as important to you. And I think that's what Nora struggles with. Less so like the idea that she wants to leave the house, but that sometimes she doesn't. Yeah. And that's okay. And so part of the time you're pressuring her and she's saying, I can't, I think she's also trying to say, like, maybe I don't want to. Yeah. Like, maybe I want you just to be happy with the way these things are playing out for us.
Yeah, there actually is no tension there. Yeah. It is the way,
Like, I'm a gamer and I play games, and we're going to play Battle Farm, which is our stand-in for WoW. And, like, every time she's saying, want to come play Battle Farm, that's her way of saying, do you want to hang out together for real? There's the turkey waiting for you on your date. Okay. I decided that since you hadn't explored the fulsomeness of the turkey hawk, we are on a date with the turkey hawk. It's
difficult for me to interrogate over this because this I've actually never seen.
Yeah.
The gym does look great.
I love the gym decoration. So it's been interesting trying to figure out the turkey hawk's gestures as like a thing, and also like realizing that they're not strange. Like, I think part of the game is that we don't have a lot of money, so we try to do as much as we can with little. And so, I kept thinking about, oh man, we're gonna have to blow this out and like actually make some cutscenes and actually animate these characters or get some other poses for these characters to like make it seem more rich. But I realized that like, until we have like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of budget, anything we would add would just kind of point to the poverty of our resources. Yeah. So I thought, let's just like, so when Suzanne started putting movements in square brackets. I was like, this is perfect.
It's a brilliant compromise.
Yeah, people can imagine it, and we don't actually have to try to have like one scene where the turkey hawk is like holding a hammer, but every other time we want him to hold something, and he is not necessarily him. Every time we want the turkey to hold something, no, we only had budget for a hammer, so now all our scenes involve turkey with a hammer. Okay, I'm gonna pick the Zombie Slayer mashup song. Also, I like that turkey can somehow give you a thumbs up. Like, we're not even trying. Like, there's thumbs in those feathers.
Kind of like a thumb feather.
Now, when you have him text in perfectly elaborate English, is that something that you've initially explored as just kind of like a joke or a one-off, or is it going to be integral?
It's integral
To the development of the character, yeah.
That's a new dimension to Turkey's personality, that Turkey is underneath that costume a very eloquent being.
Right.
This is where you decide if you're going to be a couple with Turkey Hawk. Let's do this.
Sure. One thing, I mean, I think this is more personal. I don't see this on there. To me, Turkey Hulk looks like he's about 7 feet tall. Like looks like an adult. Was there ever an exploration of like, if we're gonna make this a dateable character, should we make them a little shorter so that it could be somebody who's the same age as the characters? Because there is a certain element of this. Like, what do you mean?
He's the same height as Colin, isn't he? Colin's also tall.
Colin's a bit tall.
Mascot costumes
They're
add a
huge.
lot of it.
That's true. That's true.
Like, the eyes of the
The eyes
person
might
could be
be-
at the neck.
Oh yeah, you're right. I've never been in
So
one
you
of these
just-
things
you
before.
just
I guess
never
it's true.
know.
You like, yeah.
I wore one once.
Really?
And I was looking out through the mouth and the head was up here.
Is it hot in there?
Yeah. But it was winter. I was skating outside. It was fine.
Oh.
Are we
You're skating
together?
around in a mascot?
Guys, we need to make this choice together.
Okay.
Are we together?
Of course.
Okay. Aw, little fancy footwork there.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, this song was my favorite song. There's a special song for the turkey, which is like bar none the best song in the
Really?
world. Oh yeah.
See, this is the, like
Maybe
this,
maybe if we're lucky, Robbie can like play it. Like our audio guy can put it in the background here.
like you guys are doing this, and it's interesting because the way you talk about it is like this has emerged as a serious thing, and yet so much about it feels Easter eggish. You know what I mean? Like it's a real side route. It's got its own odd music. It's like that weird ending to Silent Hill where you walk in a control room and it's a dog on all these levers. Like I think anything with animals makes people inherently think that it's going to be silly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that this is emerging as something that is going to be a serious route.
Oh yeah.
That players can actually follow all the way down. So they'll be excited to know that this is not, so just to be absolutely clear, this is not a strange, Plan Z type of ending. This is a real route that players will be able to follow throughout the rest of the series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can totally date Turkey Hawk the entire time.
Oh yeah. Uh-oh. You ditched Marcel for Turkey Hawk.
Oh.
And Marcel's not one to suffer fools.
No.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Awkward.
this thing is, yeah, it's a return to relative lightness fairly quickly.
And then also I love that we put square brackets there, and I just have this image in my mind of Marcel dancing away. Like, and it's like, how Sam Rockwell is just a fantastic dancer? Like, in a Sam Rockwell, like, being the best dancer in the place kind of way.
Well, it suits Marcel's character because Marcel wants to be the best at whatever he does.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of perfectionist in him.
Yeah. Oh, and then Chevy does, should we blast through the cookie scene? It's a bit, I'm gluten intolerant. I like this whole scene with,
I like this conversation with Principal Ball, I think, too, because sometimes as a teenager you would find yourself in an awkward place at like a high school dance, and you'd be like, at least I know that the adult, I can go talk to them. It's not
Yeah.
cool, but they'll be nice to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
that's
So
true.
it feels like authentic.
Although maybe the scene isn't authentic, because I feel like if a teen was at a dance and was feeling awkward, they would probably just take out their phone now
That's true.
and be like head down texting. There's not a lot of solo texting that happens, and like there's not a lot of solo internet spending time on your device that happens in this game that I think is also like one of the playtesters said that they wished that they had an option in the game when they felt awkward to just go away and be on Facebook for a while.
I think Chevy would talk to you anyway. I think
Yeah.
even if you went to text, Chevy would still be like, "Hi, player."
That's true.
Yeah.
He just stands there.
What are you
probably.
doing?
What are you doing? Play one of those games you guys have?
Oh, this is my favorite transition scene, by the way. Just props to that. Great. It's so cute.
I mean, this is a more general question, but it goes back to what you brought up just now. Do you guys think, as writers, it is getting more and more difficult to write social situations when everyone has these phones? And, you know,
super difficult.
it's super difficult. You can't write a narrative where somebody has to go somewhere and find someone because it's no longer realistic that you would have any
the other
problem
thing
finding
is
anyone.
that technology changes so quickly that
Yeah.
you have to keep it very neutral, because what's awesome right now and what everybody's using right now, like a month from now, might be like totally not the thing. So you have to keep things. You have to be sort of conscious about technology in anything you write, but at the same time, it can't be super specific because it's going to date.
Yeah. But do you think players are comfortable to a certain extent? Because I think they are in the narratives. I wrote like a certain suspension of technology in certain situations, just so
Yeah.
people can have conversations or have to find each other.
Yeah, but I think we see that in other forms of entertainment. Like, I think TV and movies are still catching up to technology as well. I find it refreshing if you watch TV and movies and they actually do use technology in a real and meaningful way.
Yeah.
Because it's still somewhat new. So,
Okay, guys, we have a choice. Should I go to Colin or should I go to Jane? Maybe Colin, just because that is a bigger conversation in this game, I
Yeah.
think.
Sure.
I really like this part. Suzanne and I talked to my brother about the Colin story arc, because my brother was a rugby playing teen, and we needed to get a better idea of what the impact of something like being almost kicked off a sports team would have had on him when he was young.
Oh, huge.
Yeah, I never
It's-
knew
it's
though.
your-
Like,
well, it's your
I was not
identity,
an
right?
athletic kid, so
Right.
I did not understand any of that.
Imagine someone to come to you and tell you can't be smart anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. And then here's the dance off. So this would be like you were on a date and the turkey starts dancing. And everybody's being very proud of your date.
Is it possible the turkey hawk is a hallucination? Is not real.
Actually, we had a whole talk about whether that could be part of the end of the episode, that it turns out nobody else saw the turkey
Yeah.
hawk at all.
Did you guys see turkey? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did. That is not what we landed on.
No,
that. No,
that would-
it would felt very disrespectful to turkey.
No, it would
Yeah.
throw things into like another genre almost. Like it's, yeah.
I really like the emotional arc of this part. I will say, as I was playing through the game, I liked that we went from this really ludicrous, silly scene of like having this dance off between Chevy and the turkey hawk to basically like Colin just throwing it down and being like, "I'm super upset right now," and storming off.
Colin's melting down.
Yeah. It was a beautiful arc in terms of the player's experience of the dance, right? Because like dances are about that. They're about high emotion.
Yeah.
And so we managed to like court this sort of like you're on a date, it's exciting, you get involved in this crazy dance off, you're feeling really good, and then Colin just boom, wrecks it, right? Like even, I don't mean to be mean to Colin, but he does. Like he just kind of like storms out.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the high school dance is about that romantic social confrontation when you're a teenager, right? But it's actually really more about your identity. So when out of nowhere something threatens Colin's, like, forget this dance, I don't care who I'm on a date with. You're telling me I'm not about not being on the rugby team. That's way more important than
Yeah.
this dance or who I'm on a date with.
I knew this has to be a joke. And then you get his friends and Marcel thinking he might be at fault. And then you've got Jen. See? Poor Jen.
Right. Right.
love.
Okay, now I see the hints
You-
now. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When you see Hannah for Jane together, you assume it's a group think, anything
Yeah.
they say. That's difficult.
So let's go talk to Jen, because you clearly don't know about, and Jen's, so then here's the Jen not liking you. What do you want?
Sigmund.
So here's now, and this part I like too because Jen has Colin's back. Like you just tried to manipulate him, and he probably told Jen. So Jen's
Right.
like, I don't like you.
You get away with almost nothing in this game, and I
Yeah.
like that because that's authentic. Have you guys talked about that? Just like, look, we're in a setting where everyone tells everyone everything else, and
Well, we
5
have-
minutes after it happens, everyone knows.
Yeah, well, we have talked a lot about like how you can try a lot of different things, but there's consequences to
Yeah.
trying different things. You can try and be mean, or you can try and be nice, but you're always finding out what happens
Yeah.
based on what you say or what you do.
And everyone's going to hear about it, and that's
right.
super high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's forget it. It's everything. In fact, that's one of the ways in which people keep being forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So there we go. Here we go. Here's poor Colin. I thought Heather wrote this scene really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was giving me a little tear.
What do you like about it?
I think Colin comes off as incredibly heartwarming here, and you can see that he's really struggling, which is hard to do without just having a whole lot of sort of like flamboyant language, and it's not in his nature to be incredibly wordy, and so, you know, he's able to express himself.
He's asking you to be real.
Yeah. So he's sort of like, and there's also this thing with friends sometimes where they kind of want to talk, but you want to kind of, like they want to talk, but they can't. And so you have to kind of like pull it out of them, right? And so
Yeah.
I like this idea that Colin wants to talk, but he really doesn't want to because this is something he's been hiding from everybody for a really long time. And I want to be a nice person, so I say,
Yeah, I like that line. It's not funny, embarrassing. It's not sad, embarrassing. It really shows, like, I know what type of person you expect me to be, but
Yeah.
it isn't good. That's a really nice line.
and I also like for Colin's story. I think there's a sense right now, like the zeitgeist is that guys are really struggling with school. Like guys like Colin are having trouble in the education system. So I just thought for his storyline, I also hate that trope of like the athletic guy who's also the poet, who's also perfect. You know, they have that
Yeah.
in so many shows that like in order to these are the kinds of jocks you get to have. You get to have the jock who's the jerk and mean and throws soda on people and bullies all the young kids and gets their comeuppance at the end of the story.
Yeah.
Or you get to have the athletic guy who's actually secretly a Renaissance prince and is so wonderful and smart and amazing. Is also an artist and plays the guitar and you love him. And I wanted Colin to be like a real sports kid. Like
Yeah.
he's smart. He might have a learning disability. We don't know. Like he's taken a lot of strength in being part of this team that makes him feel good about himself.
And what's interesting is he knows that he can rely on the machismo and of being an athlete to be like, I don't care about school, this and that. But actually, he would love to be brighter and to do better at school, but he
Right.
feels that he can't.
Yeah.
So, and this is where you find that out.
Yeah.
Up to this point, you might have assumed he is just kind of a dumb jock type.
Yeah. I like how he says, my parents just think I'm lazy and that is a better option for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think of so many kids that I'm like that. You've been riding that wave for years, you know, and it's so hard for kids now, I think, and now I'm going to sound like an adult. It's so hard for kids these days, but in my observations of working with kids and making media for kids and just hanging out with like my stepsons, I think you reach an age where it's really hard for you to be authentic. You know, like you start feeling like you have to make a social identity and it's really hard to figure out what that social identity is going to be without, you know, really, really testing a bunch of stuff. And Colin's test right now is, can I test not caring about school? And he realizes now that he can't.
Yeah.
Marcel can, because Marcel's really, really academically gifted, but Colin has to care, and it's like hard for him.
Yeah. He has to show vulnerability. He can't
Yeah.
rely on being a stereotype. His string just ran out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Heather did an amazing job of writing that out without making Colin seem like a stereotype. So I like this one. Maybe it'll feel better knowing. Yeah. So like, again, that's like a really Colin thing to say. Like, he's like, I just don't want to be stupid. Like, why are you telling me that? Like, he's like, I don't even understand your logic there. Like,
Yeah, and I mean to be candid too, it's also completely, and maybe this is not something that even occurs in the World of Long Story, but for men to show weakness and to have something wrong with them is anathema. It's unacceptable. So this way of approaching it, of being like, no, this is not actually something you've done. This is something that you are, as a way of helping him come to terms with it, is really good. And it's really well done. but it would be difficult. This is one of these things where also I think the gender of the player is kind of a challenge too, because I think there are a lot of guys who would have a very different conversation with a guy about that than they would with a woman. Especially, a girl that maybe they like or this, that. There's a totally different set of expectations put out there, but I think it explores it really well.
And now everything's coming together in the tail end of the episode.
But I like too that you guys didn't make him like overly macho and all of a sudden now it's different. He's always been a nice guy. It's not like he ever was that kind of way. But obviously he did have something that he was guarding that was kind of unexpected. And when he's tested like that, it's hard on him, which is cool.
And now Turkey gives you a juice box. This is kind of the... And now we're gonna hold it in there. Yeah. And now we have... I think this is the thing that Suzanne was talking about, where like some things are going to appear dated. And there's like a really dated joke in here. Like we make a joke about a selfie stick that's probably only going to be funny for another 5 months.
Are selfie sticks not? Yeah, they're on their way out.
I don't know.
It's hard to
Never
say.
predict whether something will stick around or not.
I mean, it's such a functional object. I feel like it will endure even if it's not cool.
But what if we all end up having like little personal drones so that it can be like,
saying-
like Castle Crashers? Like they'll be shaped like that. The little animal that comes with you in Castle Crashers when you get one? Like it'll just be like, we'll have little animal shaped drones that just fly around us and they'll be on the internet forever making movies of our life. And like everyone would be on Periscope all the time. Like I could just be like...
I always wonder, like, the problem is if everyone has drones, they're going to smash into each other all the time.
Why do I get away for that? Oh, okay. It's almost over. Okay, so I shouldn't be talking about personal drones. It's going to happen, guys, and selfie sticks will be gone.
So here's where you start reflecting more about the mystery again.
Of M, yeah. And I think this is really honest because it returns to the central overarching plot in a way that the player probably is at this point too. Like this whole M thing, like what does this have to do with, like so much happening in my life. I'm going out with a turkey, I'm just helping my friend get over a major realization about himself. Why do I care about this person who left a note in my locker? And how, will you guys find a way to return to that and reconnect it to the greater story in a way that's going to...
wait for the next
Yeah,
episode.
I'm sure it's not for nothing. But I think that's
It's not for nothing. That's absolutely true.
But what's cool is like you've left it dangling in a way that's really intriguing and mysterious because even the player character at this point is saying like, what's going on? And yet we will return to it. That's what we know that they don't.
Yeah.
Also, my detective skills suck.
Yeah. Also a bad detective.
Oh, and this is like an empathy call. And then you finally check in with Norah.
Norah, who to me is as mysterious as M herself. Like they're both these people who aren't really involved in my life.
And I like this call because the other 2 episodes had really been predicated on this idea that Weasel Heights was a negative in your life.
Yeah.
And that you were in trouble there and that bad things had happened. And I wanted to really, not I, but we, sorry, that was mean. We, the team, guys, sorry. I feel
Cut
like
that out.
I'm staring at both of you right now, like deeply apologetic face. It's a team effort.
Hannah for Jane right here.
Yeah. Oh, bad dictator. Guys, the thing I struggle with in my relationships is that I'm a dictator. No joke. So, like, I think we all wanted to make it seem like that Weasel Heights was becoming a positive. That there was less, like, that Hannah for Jane wasn't going to come back and bug you the next day. That you weren't going to get in trouble for anything. So that you could start to, like, view the game as being, I go to Weasel Heights for other reasons. So, like...
Yeah, you're starting to feel more comfortable. You're making friends. You're feeling a lot better about things. So, yeah.
Which, you know...
And I know the next episode, so I'm like, da-da-da.
And here it is. This is the question. Like, I suppose my friends, I don't even know him at this point. And yet Nora's obsessed with them. Yeah. Anyone else pick up on that? Like, that's how I feel. Like, you know what? I feel like something's going on here. There's some connection between M and Norah that I feel like maybe we'll find out about potentially. That's just my guess.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is very
Because
interesting.
Nora seems very interested, whether you like it or not, in the pursuit of Em and what happened to her. Then again, maybe she just is interested in a mystery because
She has
she's
no life.
interested in there's no life. Yeah.
Well, the only way to find out is to tune in to episode 4 coming in December. Do we have a title for episode 4 yet? We
To
tried.
be determined.
Yeah. We'll get there. It's written. It just doesn't have a title yet. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to the writers of Long Story. It's been awesome.
Thanks
for
to
having me.
Will for an excellent conversation.
Yeah.